Tarumbeta italia katika anga.
Like this. That is how the trumpet will sound.
Ruxar, you're a lawyer.
Yes.
You run your own firm?
Yes.
What sort of cases?
We have a law firm based out of Mombasa. It's called
Yes.
R. Munir and Company Advocates. I was admitted to the bar 6 years ago.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we've been doing well, we thank God. I have a corporate, commercial, and conveyancing practice.
Okay.
So we handle corporate transactions, commercial transactions. We give companies and businesses support during, for HR matters, for legal matters, for litigation, whatever it may be. And of course, in our beloved country, we handle sale and purchase of land, which is, a very nuanced area of law.
Oh, yes.
And yeah,
Watu
it's fun.
nyorosho hapo. Watu nyorosho proper.
It's fun. It keeps you on your toes, and it makes me appreciate our governance structures. Oftentimes I find people are very quick to criticize the government or to criticize the people who work for the government. But when you are there, when you are actually there on a day-to-day and you're interacting with these individuals and these offices and these organizations,
Yes.
you will find that they also have their limitations. And you learn to appreciate when you can get work done. So it's interesting.
Okay, because talking of law, there's this story that was on Twitter, and it was by this lawyer called Saitabao. So he'd written, Safaricom ex-employee, naitwa nani, seeks 130 million in damages for occupational health injuries sustained while working at Safaricom Care, which left her suffering from clinical depression, suicidal thoughts, acoustic shock, vertigo, altalgia, which is ear pain, tinnitus, which is hearing noises in the ear, hyperacusis, inability to tolerate normal sound, and other debilitating mental, physical, and psychological injuries. Ikakuwa Kanana Mwenda accuses Safaricom of providing poor quality headphones which permanently damaged her ears, forcing her to work long hours in a toxic and stressful environment, and subjecting her to cruel, inhuman, and degrading human experiments and intrusive medical procedures in violation of her bodily dignity, and discarding her once she was damaged goods. Like, damn!
So Safaricom namfanya akue mwenda kabisa.
Yeah, oh shit, yeah.
You know
Yes.
mwenda? Short for mwenda
Mwenda, yeah. So, then what else? Safaricom recently faced similar accusations in the case of Eva Basi Kathambi versus Safaricom. That was 2023, where the Employment and Labor Relations Court in Nairobi held that Safaricom had failed to take reasonable care to discharge its duty to provide the employee with adequate equipment and a safe system to work to guarantee the safety, health, and welfare of employees. Then the lawyer is saying ameteki story on pro bono. Now the first hearing itakuwa ni Friday 6th. So
Tomorrow.
Yes. Looking at this, what comes to mind? Because I think when you go through the specific charges, one of the things that stands out is she used to work for 10 hours. Kenya kuna kuga na maximum hours at work. Ama it's up to the employer.
There is a minimum hours
Yes.
of work,
Or
I
minimum.
think,
Yeah.
which is about 40 hours per week.
Okay.
And maximum would be at the discretion of your employer or based on your employment contract. Okay? The reason for the 40-hour rule, or rather the minimum, is, you have 8 hours a day for 5 days a week.
Yes.
And then the weekends are, it's optional depending on the organization that you work with. One thing that stood out to me when you told me about this first
Yes.
is, you see, in my practice only, I'm realizing and seeing more and more that employees are coming out to speak against mental abuse. This is a growing trend in Kenya, and often, let's pause there for a second. You see, Safaricom is a conglomerate. It's a big company. It's massive, right? And this is going to be its own problem. Like this, it's going to go on for some time. But what is interesting, what's happening amongst small and medium-sized businesses in Kenya? A small business is someone that has started and is running a small business. It's self-explanatory, right?
Yes.
Medium-sized is someone who has been in business maybe 3 to 7 years. Uko. You've started, you're no longer a small business, you have transitioned, you have some more staff members, you have some more clients, you have been a going concern for a particular period of time, okay? And then you have the larger companies, the ones that have 50 plus employees. And these are my clients, basically. What I am seeing happening, and what we are seeing as a legal fraternity as well, is more and more people speaking up for themselves in relation to their employment rights.
Yes.
Okay? And I think it's a beautiful thing to witness, because it means people are becoming more aware of what their rights are. So it becomes more difficult to abuse someone's rights when this person is in a position of knowledge. They have information that is working for them. And then there is more importance being placed on mental health, not just in large companies that are doing it for purpose of people and culture, or for CSR, or for the company culture that we find in big companies, which is amazing to see as well. And it's, they deserve their own flowers. But there is also that in small and medium-sized businesses where sometimes employees, there's some pressure that's being put on them. You're working long hours, you are doing extra work. You haven't seen a salary increment in a few years, but you've seen your boss getting a new car, they've gotten a new home, they've moved to a better neighborhood, their kids are going to private schools. And you're feeling like, I'm doing so much, I deserve more.
Yes.
Yeah? In these cases, there is a gap with how businesses are handling these matters. It's a genuine concern. First of all, you're not invalidated just because you have a invisible problem.
Yes.
Mental health is not always visible physically on the outside, but it's something that you're struggling with on the inside. And the importance of having spaces where people can come and talk to their employers about their issues is becoming more and more important, because there needs to be that human touch. There needs to be that connection. We spend so much of our time sitting in front of machines and sitting in front of screens and working off of devices. Like her complaint about wanting to have proper quality headphones is very real. If you have some crappy earphones that you are putting in for 10 hours a day for 6 years, of course it's going to impact your hearing. Of course, it's going to impact the mind and muscle connection between your ear and your brain.
I think the fact vile umeiputivo, let's even go step by step. Yes. So ilikuwa Kanana Mwenda describes her 7-year journey at Safaricom not as a career climb but as a nightmare after 5 years of back-to-back short-term contracts, which she claims were used as weapons of control to keep staff in constant fear. She was finally made permanent in 2022.
And let me tell you guys, the courts in Kenya are seeing the wisdom in what employees are saying.
Yes.
Okay? Putting someone on a short-term contract. I have seen businesses that are constantly renewing 3-month contracts. Constantly renewing 3-month contracts and constantly putting employees on 3-month probation for every 3-month contract.
Yes.
That means your probation haishi. You are
You're renewing or still on probation.
You are constantly being like it's a carrot and stick, right? Someone is dangling the carrot in front of you, and you're expected to keep trying to work it with a stick, right? That can cause mental distress. You don't have any sense of stability. We talked about planning for our futures. How are you supposed to plan for a future if you don't know if you're going to have a job at the end of the month? Or if you are constantly being put on probation and it says in highlighted text on the contract, 7 days notice pending payment. So at any moment, you're living in constant fear of losing your job. At the same time, because of the realities of our life, you standing here doing this job, and while you are doing the job, there is 50 other people standing right outside ready to take your job at the same salary, willing to maybe even work more hours because of their because of their experience or lack thereof, right?
And their desperation also.
And there's desperation. So when you try and put it in context like that, Kenyan courts are coming to the aid of employees, and they are seeing the rationale in what employees are saying about the abuse of the Employment Act
Yes.
and the abuse of employment policies and procedures. Okay? It is paramount that employees across the country, doesn't matter what sector you're in, you educate yourself on what your rights are,
Yes.
what your contract terms state, and also to have the ability to negotiate those contract terms so that they can give you the mental and physical security that you need to prosper.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Because another thing that's here, the suit paints a grim picture of life in a major telecommunications call center. Mwenda alleges that she was forced to work up to 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, in an environment she describes as cruel and inhumane. And this is what I was asking you about. Is there, because you see, in these so-called developed societies, kuna kuagana, you're supposed to work 8 hours. And anything past 8 hours is overtime.
Yes.
Sindio?
Yes.
And but now we're looking at Safaricom. This is vile lulisema. I think the only time utumia jina behemoth is when I'm talking about Safaricom. You know, like Safaricom is this very big institution. If I'm
Yes.
working for 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, that's 60 hours.
Yeah.
And there's no overtime, because I feel like there needs to be overtime. So unasema in Kenya hakunaga like this is the amount of hours you're supposed to work per day. Inakuaga like it's just open. You can work 16 hours. You can work 8 hours, and there's no extra coin because today I worked 16 hours.
The minimum number of hours
Ndio iko minimum.
is there. 8 hours
Maximum
in
hapo.
full-time employment. If you look at that across 4 days a week, you will have 40 hours.
Yeah, cross
If you
5
add
days, Monday to
Saturday
Friday.
mornings, you're working half day,
Yeah.
45 hours. Most of the employment contracts that I interact with have 48-hour contract weeks. Okay? That's because a lot of businesses will put that on paper. And
Yes.
it's easy to put on paper. Okay? To give you an example, my husband worked at a company where they started very early in the morning, before 7 a.m. or 7 a.m. sometimes.
Yes.
And they will finish at 6 p.m. 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Yeah? That is
That's 11
lot,
hours.
11 hours. And he did that for a full year, Monday to Saturday.
Ooh.
So 66-hour weeks. Okay? When he would go out on the field, he's working from before sunrise to after sunset because that's what was required of him at the time. On paper, it would say 45-hour contact week.
Yes.
Yeah. But for the sake of job retention and for going the extra mile and for standing out and for your performance review and for the sake of your future salary or your security in your contract or maintaining relationships with your employer or just not wanting to make someone mad, like, you put in the extra time and you do the work. Mind you, for these guys, their actual working hours were 7 to 6. So 11-hour days. But, one thing that he learned from that environment also is how to draw important boundaries. There are ways in which you should be able to negotiate with your employer and talk to them. And if they're not receptive, then they are abusing the process.
Yes.
And I have to say, like, my husband's employer was very receptive to change and to listening to what was potentially going to make them a better organization, so that they have better employee retention, which in such organizations, sometimes you will find people will come and go very quickly. It becomes just like a stomping ground. Just come, bounce, go, bounce, like that. Yeah. So your employee retention is not very good and people don't want to work for you for a long time because they feel like you are abusing them. Yeah. But in companies where they are willing to make a change, they're willing to make adjustments or give you some added benefits or give you some leeway with whatever it may be, sometimes you can justify what
Yes.
it is you're doing. In this lady's case, unfortunately, it just sounds like a very grim atmosphere, for real.
Kanene, najua mwaka ni mpya lakini injili ni ile ile lemfi. So kama uko US, uko UK, uko Canada ama uko the UAE na unatry kutuma do Kenya, baki umechangamka, ingia lemfi, utabaki umepata the most competitive rates. Lakini apart from that, on your first transaction ya $100 or more, utapata $20 sign up reward. So unangoja nini? Baki umechangamka, chap chap, ingia lemfi. Lemfi, international payments for everyone. Kanene.
Because it gets even more controversial. The third thing she was talking about is perhaps the most shocking part of the claim involves allegations of mandatory and intrusive medical procedures. Mwenda asserts that she was subjected to repeated throat endoscopies against her will as part of medical surveillance. I'm there like as a call center person. Endoscopy is
Yeah.
So why? So ama hii amechizi because
It's an
hii make sense.
investigative procedure that
Yeah.
actually
So why do I need it? Ndio nikuwe kwa call center?
I don't
maybe
know,
if
maybe
you've
because of your
damaged
Ama
voice.
you
your
need-
vocals.
Yeah.
You need to have a good voice for the
I guess maybe there's like a standard for it that we don't understand. But I would love to actually read the pleadings in the matter just to
Yeah.
understand what information has been given to justify some of the allegations being made. But obviously, you see, like we said, this is something that's going to go on for a while.
Yeah,
And Safaricom, as they should, will have an opportunity to rebut all of these allegations.
Yes.
And I'm sure they will. And their advocates will do a very good job of that.
Yeah.
So it's about, understanding the what leeway do you have with the law, and then allowing the courts to interpret the law and give us precedent that is going to now speak to that effect. So often you'll find that the courts will rule on a particular issue or a particular matter, and immediately, like clockwork, companies will have to put in place policies that will either propel those decisions that were made or protect them from those decisions that were made. And it usually works towards the benefit of the employee.
Yes.
So the fact that these questions are being discussed is 10 out of 10, very good to whoever took up the matter. And it will give them an opportunity now to reassess and reevaluate and put in place whatever mechanisms are necessary to prevent other employees from experiencing the same.
Because I feel like MPs in Kenya, this is the reason why when you have these fools running a country, because they've never even sat down to think about maximum hours. Because there's this very interesting thing that I saw. It was passed a few years back in Germany, I think less than 5 years ago, where in Germany, ukishatoka job, like time yako ya kutoka job ikikuwa ni 5 sharp, it at 5:01 moto itoke kwa ofisi, you are under no obligation kuimwagia maji because time yako ilikuwa ni 5.
Ni moto ya kuwatea mbali.
Yes, of course every reasonable human being ukiambiwa hivyo you'll help out, but with Kenya what happens is the employee can just employer can decide, you know what, now you're going to work here for 18 hours, go home, hii 6 hours uende imetosha, ufike home ulale na urudi. You understand? Now you stay like 1 hour away from work. By the time unafika home ni kuoga tu na kurudi.
But think about domestic helps. Yeah, like a house manager or a domestic help, basically. And, just with the example that you've given, there are so many households where I find that this person is earning below minimum wage.
Yes.
And is working 16-hour days. Like they are in your house before you wake up and they leave your house after you sleep.
Yes. And you
they-
give them minimum
and you give
wage.
them less than even minimum wage. You say, oh no, but I'm giving you food and I'm giving you water and I'm allowing you to use my Wi-Fi. But like in
Yes.
reality, you've restricted this individual's movement.
Yes.
And you're not remunerating them enough to be able to justify the number of hours that they are spending in your household. That's their place of work. That's their job. Like there has to be some boundaries there as well. In other countries, for example, in Australia, you find that they are charging $30 an hour for a cleaning service.
Yes.
They trend in the US, you have like $28, $100 that like for 4 hours, someone will come and do some small cleaning for you and they'll chuck. Yeah. Those people are so keen on their time that they don't allow abuse of process. And their control mechanisms, their departments of social security, their employment departments, their offices, the police even, are not afraid to get involved and take a stand when these processes are being abused. So I think in our country, as we progress and as we navigate the streets of employment law, there are going to be changes that will need to be made within organizations like Safaricom as they progress, that will be more accommodating of the season that we are in as a generation.
Yeah, because it's interesting. His story, the more you learn about it, the more you're like, damn. So there's the part where the defense leans heavily on past legal losses for Safaricom. specifically citing the case of Eva Besi Kathambi versus Safaricom 2023. In that instance, the court ruled that the company failed to provide safe equipment, that means headsets, and a safe system of work. Afu Mwenda's legal team argues that Safaricom ignored these past lessons, continuing to use defective equipment and negligent procedures that have now left another employee with irreparable health issues. So history ya Eva, I had to go back in time and
Yes.
find out she was paid 2.5 million.
Nice.
And why was she paid 2.5 million? Ilikuwa the award was for pain, suffering, and loss of amenities. Kathambi lost her voice due to a medical condition ya ear and noise ailment after working as a customer care representative. So nashindwa, watu wanatumia equipment gani? Safaricom, simnipatie kazi ni wa supply a good equipment. Like,
I think, you know,
like, I don't understand.
We can't ignore the role of, or the perceived role of the Communications Authority of Kenya.
Yes.
You know, they are the watchdog body in this case. And in conjunction with with proper labor practices, so, you know, the labor office,
Yes.
they should be able to conduct inspections and also generate reports on what is necessary, what next steps companies need to take or be compliant to, which will then force the compliance departments in those companies, in these conglomerates, to now take the necessary steps to safeguard themselves against fines
Yes.
and possible interventions. You know, so that the incentive to make a change has to come from within. Like, it has to be something that the watchdog, the people from the top, you know, can influence moving downwards, so that the effect is felt all the way down to the call centers that are receiving the phone calls. But like, that initial step needs to be taken by the authority in place, and it needs to effect it in a way that is going to incentivize these companies to comply with
Yes.
what the courts are saying. Yeah.
Kusa tukimalizia iko ni the financial stakes are massive. Mwenda is seeking a total of 130,494,325 shillings. See 326, 325 shillings. Which is approximately $1 million. Alafu 129.5 is requested for general, exemplary and aggravated damages for irreparable physical and psychological trauma. The remainder covers 12 months salary for unfair termination, a 2023 bonus and a medical cover to treat her injuries for life. So this is a very interesting story, because if you told me, because I've spoken to a lot of Safaricom customer care, and if you told me that they're using equipment that can end up ikiumiza masikio zako, I don't know, like, because some work from home. So if they're working from home, I think Safaricom needs to be facilitating them having even normal kawaida headphones instead of, si lazima ikuwe hizi, unaelewa, because there's a way you can use Bluetooth headphones.
Yes.
And they're not that expensive, because these are, if you are too expensive, you know, that the ones that have
The mic'd ones.
The mic piece,
they're
yeah.
more expensive than Bluetooth. Now Bluetooth unapata lambi $60 that are, alafu like when I used to work on radio, we used to sign, ukunapatiwa headphones, alafu you sign for them. So kiziharibu na replace. I'd rather you give me that than you give me some expensive equipment that's
Yeah.
That is hazardous. Okay.
yeah. So it's
Genuinely
interesting.
concerning.
So,
Yeah, plus mechikia natafuta $1 million.
yes, because I was going to ask Ruksa,
Yes.
like, when you are suing and you're seeking a settlement, like, how do you arrive at a certain figure? What guides you? Are you guided by your profession? Am I just guided by?
No, there is quantification of claims, right? So in any case, there will be two different types of damages. There is general damages and special damages. Special damages have to be justified. So if you're asking for a particular amount, for example, her insurance cover, the 12 months unfair termination,
Yes.
the health bills, you know, whatever hospital bills that she may have incurred in that process, these are all justifiable. You can collect receipts and you can project based on income what you would have earned in that period. Yeah. So
Yes.
those are quantifiable. You can calculate them. Then there is general damages. So for example, like aggravated damages would go under the general side, because you don't have an exact figure, but you have an about figure. Yeah. And that about figure will be based off of previous figures that you have had, that you have collated. You collect this information and then you present it to the court. But in that regard, in that specific regard, it would be at the court's discretion how much of that amount they want to give you. Whereas for special damages, if the court agrees to give you special damages, they're giving you the figure that you have written down because you can justify it and it's quantifiable. Of course, the court is entitled to investigate and to justify for themselves whether or not this is something that you would have been entitled to, but that's the main difference. So it's not just a number that comes out of nowhere. These are quantifiable. I need to see receipts for me to be able to put in this amount. And I say the same to my clients. Sometimes a client will come to you and say, this person is claiming 7 million shillings from me. You claim 9 million shillings from them. And I'm like, okay, boss, let's sit down and talk about this. Yeah. What do you want me to claim 9 million shillings for? Even if you were to do a counterclaim, provided you have the justification for it, it would be capped at the amount that this person is claiming from you. Yeah. So 7M in that case.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Yeah.
But if you can justify that you incurred losses of 7 million plus another 2 million based on these receipts, I can include it. But if it's just a figure that's coming from your brain because you feel entitled to it, I'm not going to include that because I will not be able to justify it to the court.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but Ruksar, asante sana.
Nini, before you go, daily events.
Yes. What about it?